Okay, so I got to set the stage here for everybody. I'm in Los Angeles. Brad's in Philadelphia. We record the podcast every week on camera as we record, these high-res audio files. But Brad, I'm noticing something, and this is a sparkling revelation. It's a new T-shirt for Brad Geiger. It's not just a standard black T-shirt, and it seems to have print and colors. What's happening?
I realize I need to start getting some updates to my wardrobe. I realized this last a couple of 2-3 months ago when I got that T-shirt from NCS for the Reuben Awards.
Yeah.
And I started wearing it like every week because it was like the first not black T-shirt that I had. And it's like, oh, this is nice. I've got a new T-shirt. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start getting some T-shirts that aren't just solid black T-shirts. So we're at Reading Terminal Market, and this is a roast pork place. And I'm like, oh, it's got a cool logo of a little pig there. I'm gonna get a T-shirt. And I realized that I look into my closet and I've got all of these very basic colors: black, beige, khakis, black pants, jeans. And I realized that I'm a very basic human being when it comes to fashion. And I don't know how to put, I know I'm an artist, I'm supposed to know this stuff, but I'm a black and white line art guy. I as soon as it comes to color, I go running to Alex Heberling and say, help, I don't know what to do. And I realized I need somebody to come back with Garanimals.
Garanimals! Do you remember Garanimals?
Do you remember Garanimals? They had a great system for
tell
clothing.
People what Garanimals, like what year was Garanimals? Oh my God, what a reference.
It had to have been in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was a line of children's wear. Unfortunately, I kept waiting for them to go up to the adults. They never did, which upsets me. But every shirt, every pants had a little animal on it. And if you got a shirt with a little rhinoceros on it and you found your rhinoceros pants, you put those together and that outfit those colors went together and you knew that you were put together well. And I need Garanimals. I need to look on the little tag of my shirt and see a little giraffe, and then find my giraffe Dockers and put them together and know that I can leave the house feeling confident.
Well, quick question, because I never owned Garanimals. If you got a shirt with a little horse on it, but the pants had a little donkey on it, were you like looking around the house for a mule socks? Like, I gotta find mule. Where's mule?
No, you do not put horse with donkey. You're making a classical Garanimals mistake. You do not. Close enough is not good enough with the Garanimals. You gotta match the species. There's no mixing. You don't put a giraffe with a shark, and a donkey is not close enough for horses. It's gotta be Garanimals correct.
So now that you have reached adulthood and you're very much in the Steve Jobs school of fashion, which is like, I don't have the cognitive load for more than one color.
Yes.
What is your reaction as you're starting to try to introduce variety into your wardrobe?
I'm this close, Dave, to going back to black T-shirts because I found out that when you don't wear black T-shirts, life gets complicated very quick. I'll tell you what I mean. I had a Temple Owls sweatshirt on. And it just said, it's Temple Owls. I love the logo. It's a great sweatshirt. I'm standing out front of the hardware store because I needed to get a new propane tank for the grill. And the kid's going off. He took my empty and he's going to bring back the full one. I'm standing in front of the hardware store with my Temple Owls T-shirt. Somebody comes in and comes up to go into the store, looks at me and says, hey, go Owls. And in that half second, I realized I don't know what to say. I literally don't know what to say.
The most sports-savvy guy in the world.
And I panicked. And I looked at him and I said, thank you. And then he didn't respond.
Go Owls, thank you is the response.
He went into the store without saying another thing. I sat there looking desperately up and down the street to see that kid coming back with my propane tank. Because I did not want to be there when he came back, because now that's even more awkward. And so he comes around the corner. I run to him, get my propane tank, get in the car, and peel out. I come home and I tell my family. I go, oh, you never believe what your father did. And I tell him this whole story. My wife stands up and says, you should have said, go Birds. Now, in Philadelphia, go Birds means go Eagles.
Right.
And I said, I can't say go Birds because that means Eagles. And she says, no, Eagles and Owls, they're all birds. So, for all I know, she may be right. All I know is wearing clothes is too complicated. I'm going back to black t-shirts.
Yeah, I love that now middle-aged Brad is like, hold on. The major problem that's a mistake here is that you're speaking to me. I would like to go through life anonymously and not bothered. I'm going back to khaki shorts and a black t-shirt and leave me alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as they come up with Garanimals, they better have solid colors.
We're getting Brad all mule Garanimals, all mules, no horses, no donkeys.
Well, yeah,
mixing.
because when I don't have that, what I got is one jackass.
And on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about mixing sharks with elephants and making comics.
You don't do that, Dave. You're going to piss me off. I know you're joking, but you don't do that. And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc.
I love that it gets your goat. Gets your goat. I love that it gets your goat that I'm poking fun at a 40-year-old brand that no one remembers. You're like, I will die on this hill, by God. I will die on this hill for Garanimals. And I'm his friend Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive in Sheldon and co-director of the comics documentary Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. We have a really fun show for you all today. Brad and I went over the questions a minute ago, and hot diggity, this is going to be a fun one. I want to lead off, though, by telling you that Brad's Kickstarter right now is wrapping up this week, and you have got to run, don't walk, run over to Kickstarter.com. But Brad, do you got a URL ready for folks for
Absolutely.
For that
I took our own advice and got a URL redirect that I use. It's called newevilbook.com. If you go to newevilbook.com, you can see the next graphic novel for Evil Inc. that's coming out. It collects everything from 2018 to 2020. It's 120 pages and it's wonderful. It's about 5 chapters. I was reading through them and I actually made myself laugh a few times. You know how that when you forgot the punchline, it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. So I feel good about this. Plus, I'm doing something I always wanted to do. There's actually 2 books. There's a safe for work version that you can back and a not safe for work version that you can back. You don't have to back them both. You can get one or the other. I suggest getting both, but the not safe for work version adds 30 pages of After Dark material that have corresponding storylines, so it just reads smoothly all the way through. And I am so excited about getting these books out.
I'm excited for you. It's fun to see the next book coming out. It's fun to see how beautiful the cover for both look and how good the books look. I've been lucky enough to see the early read of it, and I can't recommend it enough. So that is newevilbook.com. Brad Geiger's book, Run, Don't Walk. Run, Don't Walk. Go. It's like Garanimals. You want to get there with. There's no tie-in. I couldn't make Garanimals work. I tried. I bailed out immediately. Newevilbook.com. All right. Well, I've got a topic I want to jump us into for this week, and this is a thought about how art responded to photography and how we can learn from that in our battle against AI in the coming years. Yeah. So basically, when you think about Picasso and the Surrealists as a movement, all of that was a reaction to the fact that suddenly, and by suddenly, I mean in the course of like 20, 30 years in their lifetime, suddenly there was this device, a camera, that could perfectly recreate what the human eye was seeing. And so all these decades of practice at being a painter and learning perspective and learning shading and chiaroscuro and learning value and tone and hue and all that sort of stuff thrown out the window because the camera could do it better, right?
Yeah.
And so how did the surrealists respond? What they did is they said, what can the camera not do? Okay, the camera can capture what you're seeing perfectly, but the camera cannot capture what you can't see. So we're going to get wildly inventive because the camera can do realism. So we're going to do surrealism. We're going to make bonkers art that challenges the brain in terms of what it's seeing, how the world's being presented, how the truths are being interpreted. It also worked well in given the political period. But surrealism, if you look at it in the broadest of broad strokes, was a reaction to the fact that the camera could suddenly capture what painting tried to capture for centuries and could do it instantaneously, cheaper, and put it in the hands of the masses within a couple decades. So here's what I want to suggest is that within a very short amount of time, AI is going to be able to tackle TV and film and comics in a way that it'll be able to very easily and almost perfectly scarily replicate all the established tropes and the unimaginative conventions that we're familiar of. And we'll forget TV and film for a minute. Let's just focus in on comics. So you can sort of imagine the tropes that you might not, and the conventions that you might not even be thinking of so established, like a kid and an animal in a comic strip, right?
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it myself. A classic conventional thing for comic strips. Snoopy, Watterson, Sheldon, a billion other comic strips. Little kid, little animal, and you're off to the races, right? And so what AI will be able to do very quickly now, probably within the next couple of years, is be able to perfectly recreate a new quote unquote comic strip that you've never seen before with new quote unquote jokes that you've never seen before, but all of which follow the same tropey models and same conventional models that we've seen for the last, 70 to 100 years of comic strips, Brad. And so, I want to prepare us because I actually think there is a way to beat that. And I think the way that we're going to beat AI at its ability to perfectly replicate tropes and memes and conventional ideas and comic strips that have been established over the last 100 years is to create completely new and bonkers and individual ideas that only Brad Geiger could come up with, or only Dave Keller could come up with, or only you could come up with. And so will it be conventional? No. Will it be tropey? No. It'll be wildly different because also this is what's going to happen. People will become so bored of the conventionalness in the way that people became bored of sitcoms because they got so tropey and so set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, that people were like, hi, yeah, I get it. I get the meter of it. That now people starting to look for more inventive ways to present comedy. I'm going to argue that might be our saving grace in fighting AI, is do what the surrealists did and get very personal, get very weird, and get very inventive.
Yeah, well, because let's take that last example first. We got some really solid years of sitcom comedy through the 80s and the 90s.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And sitcoms, even culminating with Everything Loves Raymond, which was a very, very solidly written sitcom, but it was a sitcom nonetheless, right? It had that tempo. What happens as a result? Well, we get Seinfeld, which was very much a reaction to we're not going to do a sitcom, and that became kind of the new sitcom was Seinfeld, right? And then we have a few years of development, and as a reaction to this, I'm going to suggest that we have things like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is so far removed from a sitcom that I struggled to like it the first several times I sat down with it because I literally did not know how to take it.
Right.
I didn't know how to parse it. Right. I didn't know what I was seeing because it was so different, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but clearly there was people that were smarter than me that was into it for a long time. They're like, no, you gotta understand, they're not doing a sitcom. They're doing something else, and you've got to stop expecting the sitcom.
Right.
And just go for the ride with this group. And now that's becoming a kind of its own thing. So art kind of finds a way, right? Just
Right.
like that Jurassic Park reference that everybody uses from Jeff Goldblum. Art finds a way in the same way life finds a way. And you're right. Partially, it's going to be uncomfortable because writing trope kind of stuff is very comfortable. It's very familiar.
Yes.
It's very, I know this joke because I've seen this joke happen so many times that I know exactly how it goes. And I change the characters and I change everything about it, but I'm so familiar with how this pattern goes that I know how to fill in the blanks.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I write stuff that falls into that category from time to time.
I do. Yep.
You write stuff like that. We write it because it's comfortable. And by the way, just as long as we're on this ride, that's where you get into trouble too, because some of the stuff that you and I learned, some of the comedy shorthands that you and I learned, we learned from Mad Magazine, for example, and some other sources that used a lot of stuff that just isn't acceptable now. There's a lot of jokes. You look at an old Don Martin collection and you'll see a lot of stuff that you would not put your name on today.
No, God, no.
Brilliant cartoonist, wonderful craft. But some of the jokes that are being made, some of the language and some of the punching down that happens, you wouldn't find it acceptable. And if you don't keep your eyes open and you fall into those comedy patterns, and by the way, it's more than just Mad Magazine. All of a sudden you're doing something that you're like, you know what? I kind of hit a cracked note there because I was kind of falling into patterns.
Right.
What I'm saying here is maybe AI is going to force us all to kind of break out of some patterns and to find some new things, find a new way of presenting our stuff and a new pathway, whether it's comedy or drama or science fiction or whatever. Find that place to go into that isn't going to, that doesn't exist yet. It's going to be a bigger challenge for sure. But I also think, Dave, that's where the good stuff is.
Yeah, I this is going to be a bad reference because not enough people will have seen it. But there's a show on Apple TV called Severance. And both the concept of it, the conceit of it, and the way it unfolds and is written is so wholly unique from patterns and from conventions of how a TV show should be done. That is what I hold up as sort of a good high watermark right now for something that's not falling into the comfortable, not falling into the conventional, truly taking risks, truly writing from an individual and unique standpoint. And I think that's how we're going to beat AI. Is it's going to get so good at writing, the dumpy husband that's married to the smoke show wife sitcom, and look at this world, because we've seen 18 of that show in the last 25 years, and so AI will be able to write that no problem at all. So the trick will be to write a truly unique and new sitcom that's only from your voice, that no AI could come up with, that we've kind of never seen before. And the same will be true with comics. In that, to be fair, one of the reasons why people made fun of New Yorker cartoons was for a good couple decades there, they kind of fell into one of 10 joke possibilities. And they kind of didn't go outside of that world. And so you've got the sort of trope of like, desert island cartoon, because they kind of went back to certain wells a lot. And so the way I see all of us surviving the coming onslaught of comics created by AI is to further and further move away from. Now, am I saying you should jump into that wholeheartedly and discard everything that those conventions, those tropes, those comfortable comics taught us? No, absolutely not. But what I'm saying is there's actually some positive things here, which is I think when the time comes where people will get tired of AI, and that will happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there'll be a clamoring for unique voices, new stories, something coming at them in a way that surprises them because they will be so tired of the bombardment of conventional, comfortable, tropey art that they're being presented with on TV and film and in comics.
It's very interesting to see this whole thing develop right in front of our eyes. And since we're in the midst of it, it's hard to really put your foot down one place or another, because I sign off on everything that you said. I agree with it. It's also hard not to get into a whistling past the graveyard mentality too. Like, well, everything's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. And that's not what you're saying. No. But it's hard. It's hard to know exactly where I still think, by the way, that a lot of this, once the novelty wears off, hey, I wrote this with AI, once that novelty wears off, I think it's going to be something that kind of filters down a little bit. Until somebody until it comes way to a much higher place. Everything that you're seeing is the first draft was written by AI, and then they had to bring somebody in to really do the actual writing. Or we do hear people, even in the Discord server, saying, well, yeah, I don't let AI write for me, but I do use AI as a writing assistant in the same way that I might use Google to search for certain things. If I'm doing a storyline about a werewolf, I might do any number of a dozen Google searches for werewolf-related topics, just so I've got common thoughts, common legends,
parlance, visual parlance,
words that come up a lot, so that I can use all that. And, we've had people in the Discord saying that's kind of how I use AI, is to be a writer's assistant, to throw out an idea and just see what comes back from that. I don't have a huge problem with that in general. I do think, as I've said from the beginning, that the main problem is with AI is that the people that created these engines took content that they didn't pay for, to use it. And I think that at some point has to be rectified, and I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, I don't think
but that's the main thing that bugs me about it, is that everything that they're standing on in that is stolen. It was something that was outright swiped with, and yes, I know. We all agreed to the terms of service when we clicked that button on Google, clicked the button on Facebook. Right. Sometimes they switch the terms of service without really telling us.
Sure. They know very much intentionally release the terms of service as a 40-page document.
That's printed super small, and all the details are in legalese. I know all of that, and so there, you can't discount any of that. But the fact still remains that they took a lot of stuff that they didn't have any. They didn't have the consent to do that. We certainly didn't consent to having our family photos or our comics or our illustrations or our novels uploaded to build this thing. And that's something that really, honest to goodness, Dave, I grapple with it quite a bit, because I can see where this is going to become a more and more useful tool no matter what happens. If, for example, if you do use it as a writing assistant, I can see this happening, but it's built on something that really is problematic, and I don't know what the right answer is. That they're not going to go back and do reparations for all of that, unless you're Getty Images and you've got them in the midst of a lawsuit, for example. You've got a shot at it, but you and me. You ever get here's my question. You ever get a payout from a class action lawsuit?
The $4 after the lawyers got paid out? Yes.
That's exactly that. That's the best that you and I can ever hope for, is a $4 check from ChatGPT
from OpenAI or something. Yeah. I agree with you. I disagree with you that legally they did anything, or I disagree that potentially legally they did anything wrong. I think ethically, I wholeheartedly agree with you that they did something wrong. And I think we may yet choose as a society to legislate how they can do that, and whether it was right to do it. We might basically change the rules because it so goes against the spirit of human creativity. But currently, I think we're screwed. And so I guess what I wanted to say with today's opening topic was that in a world, basically I'm jumping us ahead 5 or 10 years. And in a world where AI not only exists, it's imperceptibly as good as any human artist you've ever seen, whether it's scripting a TV show or doing CGI on a Spider-Man movie or doing a comic strip. within 5 to 10 years, it's going to be imperceptible, the difference between a human created piece of art and an AI piece of art, right? So in that kind of a world, AI, though, is going to be, I think, hugely dependent on the body of work that already exists. So what will we be able to do to distinguish ourselves? I think it will be the completely unique, lean in on who you are kind of art that doesn't go to conventionality, doesn't go to tropisms, and writes in a totally unique voice. And I know that sounds so much easier than it is to do. It's like, okay, Brad, just create a whole new genre of art and a new way of doing it. And I know that sounds so hand wavy, but what I'm saying is there will be a place for new stories created by humans because AI won't be able, I don't think AI won't be able to plant that flag as well as humans can. And anyway, now that I'm saying it out loud, it's such a wimpish cry against a hurricane. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Maybe it will be. I don't know.
Yeah, we keep going back and forth between we're going to be fine and whistling past their graveyard and then coming up against the other side of it. And I don't know. I don't think anybody can know, but I think the whole point of this first segment is that if you're feeling despondent, if you're feeling like it's hopeless, I don't know that it is, because again, those painters, Picasso and Salvador Dali, they probably in the initial stages felt pretty helpless and hopeless too.
Yeah.
And there's always something like that we can learn from.
And that's what I'm basically getting at, is that human creativity sees and reacts to a problem and finds a new way to do the thing, you know? Yeah. And so surrealists saw that, like, shit, 20 to 30 years I've been learning how to paint humans the way they look. What am I going to do? This photograph can do it instantly, you know? Yeah. And so they're like, you know what I'll do? I'll make humans look ugly and weird and crazy and bonkers and new colors and new settings. And sure enough, people are like, hey, that's neat. Yeah, if I want a photograph of my kid, I can do that. But if I want a way that shows me how scary the world is in 1930, this painting does a better job of it, you know? And so I do think that there will be a good creative human reaction once AI gets established, is the short version of what I am saying. Hey, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we're going to tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
When you do, you're going to get hours and hours of podcasts that we recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And access to our exclusive Discord server, which is a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And listen, if you can't swing a pledge this month, we get it. No worries.
Yeah, listen, you can still support the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.
Just leave a 5-star review and a few kind words.
That, along with mentions on social media, is incredibly helpful.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics. All right, gang. Well, you're already running your way over to newevilbook.com, Brad's new Kickstarter, which is ending so soon that you're not wasting a moment, and you're running over to newevilbook.com. But while you're there, friends, while you're at Kickstarter, I just want to tell you that I'm starting this week kickstarting a new book. It's the 11th Sheldon collection, but it's a standalone in the sense that it's comic strips. You could read them in any order you want. It is called Get It Together Pickles, and featuring my ne'er-do-well bird Pickles. And it is a dang delight. It's going to be, I think, the biggest, in fact, I know it's going to be the biggest Sheldon collection I've ever produced. It's all color. So if you don't want to search it on Kickstarter, you can just go to picklesbook.com. And it'll be available for the next 30 or so days. It is a dang delight. Picklesbook.com. And Bradley J., let's waste no more time. Let's jump right into the next question, my friend.
Well, I've got a question. I'm going to be interested to see how either one of us answers this. This is a question about rest. Comes in from J. Lark, who says, how do you rest effectively? Do you have scheduled breaks during which you make a conscious decision not to work? Or do you take a more flexible approach and work during free time when you feel up to it and take longer breaks when needed? How do you do all the work that a self-employed professional comics creator needs to do while ensuring that you feel rested and energized enough to continue doing it? Love you guys. Take care, Lark. Dave, let's give an honest answer to this question.
Why are you leading in with laughter on that? Because you know what I'm going to say to this?
I know what I'm going to say to it. I mean, no, I don't know what I've got two choices to tell Lark about all those healthful rest breaks that I take throughout the day that ensure my mental well-being, or I could tell him the truth. Which are you going to do?
Oh, way to throw me under the bus. I will say this. I will say this. Anytime I talk to my European friends, they're always like, yeah, so I went on vacation. I was like, oh, great. Where'd you go? And they're like, well, we only had 5 weeks off, so we had to keep it short. And you know, as an American, you're like, what? And like, you know, as an American, you got like, 3-day weekend. Oh, this is great. I'll bring my laptop with me to the beach. I'll get a little work in, and then you know that I'll be back on. So I will just say the truth. You should do what I say and not what I do, because I don't give myself enough rest. I'm not good at it. In many ways, it has walked through life with me. I was the same way in high school. I was the same way in college. I was the same way when I worked a 40-hour-a-week job that actually I did 60 hours on. And then I'm the same way in my own cartooning, which is my passion project for life that I'm so happy with that, of course, I want to pour all my time into. So I'm not great at rest. How about you, Brad?
Same. You should not be asking us for this advice. Here's the deal. I will look you in the eye and tell you how important rest is for you. And I mean every bit of it.
Yes.
Rest is very important for you. Very, very important for you. But I have no plans to rest today. I've got way too many things to do. And what happens is inevitably, and I don't know whether this happens to you, but it has happened at different times during my life, where all of a sudden something will snap and I'll get like sick or something like that. And then I end up on my back resting for a day or two because I'm completely unable to get out of bed.
Right.
And that absolutely happens. And the only thing I've done that I can take some credit for is that I made a conscious effort every weekday morning to get up and do an hour on the treadmill for my heart and stuff like that. Yeah. And it changed a lot of my eating habits. Those things I did health-wise, like I said before, when I turned 50 and kind of realized I had to. But in terms of like taking a stretch, like the biggest inconsistency is that every Comics Lab episode for 6+ years, 2018 to now, has had a little interstitial in the middle on the public version of the show that says, now everybody get up and take a stretch break. There's Brad and Dave going to tell you how to live your life. Stretch out those arms and touch your toes and take a little run around the block like your old friend Brad. I'm up. Stretching. I honestly, I wanted, you know how Reddit has, and I mean this, you know how Reddit has that subreddit called Explain It to Me Like I'm 5?
Yes.
I need somebody to explain stretching to me like I'm 5, because it's one of those things that if I'm sitting there stretching, I feel like the biggest idiot in the world, because stretching makes no sense to me. If I could understand the science behind why stretching is important, I'd probably do it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I'm on the treadmill, I understand the treadmill.
I understand what stretching does. I just don't do it.
I don't do it because I don't understand what it does.
You know what stretching does in terms of opening blood flow.
I'm going to stretch my arms. I'm going to stretch. We watch me. I'm going to stretch my arms. What did that do? I'm serious as a heart attack.
That's the problem. You don't stretch, you get the heart attack.
I don't know what that did.
Can I tell you
what was so important about this?
Everybody, also because they're fun documentaries, but everybody should watch the documentaries on Miyazaki, both because he's fascinating as a person and also kind of tragic as a person, but also because it's one of those examples where you get to see a glimpse into Japanese office culture, in this case, creative office culture.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the Japanese did so well culturally is that they normalized stretching as an office or as a school or as a community where everybody just sort of takes a break for 2 minutes and stretches together. And I remember it from PE in elementary school where we'd all sort of stretch before we played kickball or did anything. And it was fun. You'd stretch your thighs and then oh my God, Brad's doing this gigantic eye roll. Brad, physical activity can be fun. For God's sakes,
I like
Brad.
physical activity. Nothing about stretching was fun. It felt funny. I didn't like it. I didn't know why I was doing it. I felt silly. I hate stretching.
Oh my God, we're learning a lot about Brad today. Wow.
I hate stretching so much.
By the way, can I just catch everybody up on, hey guys, J-Lark here. Quick question. How do you guys rest? 5 minutes later, I hate stretching. I don't understand it. I don't know what it does for me. What the fuck is stretching? Why do I stretch? I'm going to stay in my seat. I'm Brad Geiger.
And now go ahead and ask me who my two favorite superheroes are. Mr. Fantastic and Plastic Man. Now figure that out. Go ahead and figure that out.
Because they have captured your inner id. They have figured out what you can't, and they know the secret of life. They've caught the...
I guarantee you know that Plastic Man knows why he stretches, but I don't. And I know you think I'm being silly, but if I understood why...
What I'm loving about this moment, I understand you. What I love about this moment is J-Lark asks how you rest, and you're like... You have become suddenly this old man on a porch like, stretching, what's it all about? Why does anybody stretch? Why do we have bodies? When do I get to put my brain into a machine robot? I'm Brad Geiger. I don't want to live in this flesh prison anymore. I'm angry. Anyway, J-Lark, I hope that answered your question.
Anyway, J-Lark, go fuck yourself.
How did we get on stretching? And I'm sorry, Brad, that you live in a biological organism. I'm sorry that the 8 pounds is at the top of your skull is stuck in this physical prison of flesh. But you have to take care of it, Brad.
The funny thing is that we just got through a half an hour talking about AI, and I sat calmly, and because it's a very scary thing, this very scary thing, AI, and we discussed it calmly, and I had some thoughts that I shared with you, and I had reasons behind that thought, and in the last 9 minutes of talking about stretching, my face is red. I've been bouncing up and down in my chair. I've gotten more cardiovascular exercise talking about why I don't like to stretch than I've gotten in the entire 3 hours leading up to this show.
Oh my God, you're more angry about doing pinwheels with your arms than anything else I've ever seen. This is amazing. And now I know that stretching it. What a weird topic to get angry about. It's so weird. I'm just grabbing something out of air. It's like milkshakes. I hate them. Why do people like milkshakes? I'm Brad Geiger. But why stretching? You know what it is? Does it symbolize to you all the physical activities as a kid that you weren't good at? Is that what it is? Is that it was the precursor to embarrassing yourself at kickball and at football and at baseball and at soccer?
Yes, you don't know how right you are, because I'd sit there stretching before baseball practice, knowing full well that was the best I was going to feel all day.
Oh my God, I love this. Okay, so anyway, to answer your question, J-Lark, to answer the question, the way that you relax and lower your blood pressure is bring up stretching with Brad and just laugh for 10 minutes as he tells you that it's Satan's candy and that I don't know why anybody would ever stretch. Okay, so I will answer the real question. I give my, for real, there's 52 weeks out of the year. 1 week out of the year between Christmas and New Year's, I try to do nothing. I really try to do nothing. But then the rest of the 51 years, I'm a hot mess and probably prematurely gray with extra weight on that I don't need because I don't give myself the ability to rest. I have done myself no favors. And I had a friend of mine who's going through AA that would talk about how when you are an alcoholic, you are borrowing from your future self. You're stealing from your future self. Like you can have that drink now, but you're going to pay for it later and you're stealing from your future self. And so part of it is the conversation you start having with yourself is, do I want to steal from my future self anymore? Whether it's ruined relationships or years off your life, or even just tomorrow morning, you're going to lose 2 or 3 hours. And I always thought that was really impactful because I know for a fact that I am borrowing from my future self by not giving myself rest. I am not good at changing it. I'm 50 years old at this point, and I haven't been able to change it. Part of it is American acculturation is you go or you die. If you don't keep working, somehow it's going to catch up with you. And somehow our European friends didn't seem to get that same acculturation that we got, where they're more like, no, I'm taking time off and to hell with you. Don't email me. I'm not at the office. But Americans are like, okay, but you're on vacation, but you're going to still answer office emails, right? Okay. Yeah.
I like how we're going on and pretending that enculturation is a word. This is one of my best parts of the show is that you caught yourself saying enculturation once and then to cover it up, double down on it. Now you've got everybody listening at home saying, "Oh, that's a new word." You just made that up. There's no word. There's no word called enculturation.
I thought enculturation was like the gradual acquisition of characteristics or norms of a culture or a group by a person. I thought that's what the word was.
No, you're thinking incorporation and you're amalgamating those two, cultural and incorporation.
Is a word. I'm going to have you stretch your mind and use a dictionary here.
We'll settle that one after the show. But I will say this. You know what? So we're sitting here talking. I'm listening to you talking about enculturation, and I'm thinking
you're going to triple down that this is not a word.
We're going to make it a word. It's no word, but. You know what? I think I have gotten a little bit better. If I'm being really fair to myself, I just compartmentalize it. For example, I'm going to, and you know what, Dave, if you're being a little bit nice to yourself, you're probably in the same way. In my 30s and going into my 40s, when I was working on the comic, I was really working on that comic during every spare moment, which was not healthy.
No,
right?
Yeah.
I'd be doing it all, and that was doing a day job too. And after dinner, I would go up to my satellite studio and I'd work into the night and then flop into bed, completely disgusted and spent, and then wake up a few hours later and start it all over again.
Yeah, me too.
And now,
me too.
Like when I come home from the studio, I'll tell you how I rest. When I come home from the studio, I'm done. I'm done. I hang out with my family. I might be sitting there scrolling social media absentmindedly, but not working, right? And so then I have dinner with my family. A lot of times we'll watch something on TV together, or we'll watch a movie together. Maybe pour myself a tasty adult beverage, and then that's it. That's it, right? Yeah. Once you're done, those days of going back upstairs after dinner and working into the night, those days are gone, because I really couldn't keep up with. So like resting during the day when I'm at the studio, I'm not so good at that, and I maybe should be better, but we'll see. But I have gotten better about compartmentalizing, and when I'm at the studio, I'm going full bore. When I get home, I throttle it back significantly at that point. Maybe could do a better job still, but at least I'm not sitting down there drawing at the dinner table or something like that.
Yeah, and I will say that actually puts in stark relief how much better Brad's system is than mine, because my studio is in my house and it's at the front of my house. And so if I ever walk to my studio after dinner, I a little bit have failed. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, damn it, this is time I could be joking around with the kids or could be hanging out with my wife or something, and I should be doing that. And so it's easier to cheat and get back to work at night when it's in your studio, is when it's in your house. And so Brad's system is better in that regard. But I will say that, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually kind of carve out a little time for myself on weekend mornings where IKEA sells this beer mug that's like 2 pints worth. It's gigantic. Here, I'll hold it up so Brad can see it. It's a big beer mug, but I use it for coffee. And as always happens in a married couple on a weekend, my honey-do list starts to build, and I'll say, yep, I'll get to it when I finish this coffee, knowing that it always takes me about 2 hours to finish that coffee on a Saturday morning, because I'm reading and I got my feet up and I'm sitting by the sun's coming in at a certain window in my house on a Saturday morning. And that coffee is the sort of self-imposed deadline of, no, you're resting right now. You're just reading for fun. And when this coffee is done, then you'll start the to-do list that's been building up. And I do realize I do that. But during the week, I'm kind of a train wreck. It's kind of go as much as I can, if I'm honest about it.
Yeah. So yeah, you're asking the wrong guy. You're asking the wrong two guys about taking rests. We should probably be a lot better at it than we are, and you should definitely not aspire to do this.
Let me ask you this, Brad. Though, is it less of a problem because you love cartooning so much?
To an extent. I mean, here's the deal. You get into this whole thing where you go, you love what you do. You never work a day in your life. And that's bullshit. I work my ass off. And yeah, I'm drawing and I'm writing, which all sounds like very enjoyable things right up until the time that you're writing and drawing so you can get paid, right? And in other words, I can't just draw anything. I've got to draw something that is a certain quality that people actually want to look at it. And I've got to write something that's actually interesting enough that people want to read it.
Right.
And that there's pressure involved there. There's a certain amount of labor involved in that. So is it that I'm not working a day in my life? Nah, not quite. There's a lot of pressure that's involved there. Is it as bad as going out and digging ditches or working at the tool and die factory like I did when I was working through college? No, it's certainly not that either, right? It's not digging ditches, but partially it's because it took me close to 15 years to get to the point where I could quit my day job and do this full time.
Right.
And so the idea of resting and falling behind and taking the risk of losing what I've built over 15 years to the extent that I've got. I was telling you before the show, before I launched my Kickstarter, I started having, those stress dreams, those panic dreams. Yes. And my stress dream is working at the Daily News again and working that deadline shift. At that desk, and as if they would even take me back at this point, or they'd be able to pay me. That's my stress dream, is having to go back to work at the newspaper. And so when I get faced with the prospect of I'm going to go over there and sit in the chair and rest for 15 minutes, the other side of that, I'm going to fall 15 minutes behind. And if I fall 15 minutes behind every day for the next month, am I going to be so far behind that I'm going to be back at the point where I have to take a day job? And if so, how much worse is that than actually not resting? Right. So it's a really weird psychological wedge that I've put myself into, where I know that there are certain things that would absolutely be better for my health. And better health means that you're doing cartooning for a longer time. That doesn't need to be explained to me. But it's really difficult to actually stand up from what I'm doing right now. I've got a certain number of things that need to get done, and go and sit and not do them for 15 minutes. I'd wear myself into a frazzle.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, I don't know if this is a misattributed quote, but didn't Mother Teresa say something like, "I'll rest when I'm dead," that kind of thing? Yeah. Is that for me, there was about 10 or 12 years where I was working at Mattel. And then, like Brad, I would come home every night, and I'm not kidding about this. I would work until 2 or 3 in the morning every weekday. Yeah. Get up at 7 a.m. back at Mattel. This was in my late 20s and 30s. And I worked so GD hard to get a cartooning career going for 10 or 12 years that by the time that I was able to step away from my day job in 2007, what I think now drives me to not rest well is that I owe that younger me who worked so dang hard, and I'm terrified of it. Like having gotten to the brass ring of like, I'm getting to do what I always wanted to do. I'm terrified of losing it, like Brad. Yeah. So, and I just don't want to have to get a job where someone's going to ask me to stretch. Like Brad, I'm terrified of that. I'm so scared if someone's going to ask me, "Okay, listen, can you just work the quads for a minute?" And I'm just going to be like, I'm going to be going to a Brad Geiger rage about it.
Oh, and by the way, I've actually been in situations in life. I'm not going to go into detail on them, but I've been in situations in life where I was in a real serious problem. And the only way out of it was physical therapy that came down to the equivalent of stretching.
Yeah.
It was a series of dumb actions that made me look like an idiot. If you walked in to the room and I'm doing all these meaningless postures and poses and this and that, but absolutely, without a doubt, 100% got me back on track again. And
I mean, can I just pause you?
Yes.
You son of a bitch. These doctors, 10, 12, 15 years of training, and you're diminishing it to these stupid poses that these people came up with, this crazy stuff, and it worked. That's what stretching does. That's what stretching does.
And it worked. And it worked perfectly. And if I could just understand it, I would do it. I don't know why stretching is important.
Here's the thing. Well, I don't know why we're dying on this hill. You don't need to understand it to know that it helps you. That's the thing. Do you understand how fiber helps your system? Not necessarily. You just know that it helps.
Every morning I go down there on that treadmill and I go, I know I should stretch first, but it's so stupid. And so I just get up on the treadmill and I start walking.
Is it just the silliness of it that you just feel silly?
Yes, I feel like such a dope.
When you and your wife were doing birth classes and you had to do moderate stretching, were you looking around at the other husbands going, they're all judging me, they're all judging me?
No, at that point I was so panicked. You
had other panics kicking in.
That was on the hierarchy of panics. I was way down. No, but I literally feel so stupid doing it.
You're at home in your own little workout area. No one's looking at you. You can stretch, Brad. It's okay. I'm giving you permission as a friend. Nobody in
the house is awake yet. I'm the only one who's awake.
You know who's watching though? You know who's watching? God's watching. God's watching. He's laughing at you.
Believe me, if I let that kind of thought stop me, there's a lot of stuff. I wouldn't do.
There's also much higher anxieties about that. Oh well, we all have our stretching, don't we? We all have our stretching. Oh God. Brad's just figured out his own, I guess. All right. Well, listen, J-Lark, I want to thank you for asking a question that unlocked a heretofore unknown weirdness about my friend that I'm going to celebrate the fact and bring this up all the time that you're weirded out by stretching, because what a goddamn weird thing to be weirded out by. It's like, I got to tell you, I don't know. These people that wear a hat, hats are weird. I don't understand hats. You don't have to understand hats, Brad. They go on your head. They block the sun. I don't know. I'm Brad Geiger. I don't understand stretching.
I'll tell you what. I will say this. Doing this show is my rest, because I laughed so hard and I had such a great time. This hour does more for my health than any amount of stretching could possibly do. But having said that, Dave, I do need a rest. And so I'm going to take one as soon as I get done saying that you've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Well, I will say it's no stretch at all to say your host has been my friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the new host of his YouTube yoga channel. Keep an eye out for that. He's going to be doing Pilates and yoga 5 times a week. And
do not get me started on yoga.
In just his skivvies. I want maximum embarrassment for Brad. He's going to be stretching in public in just his skivvies, or maybe it's going to be like one of those French banana hammocks. It's just a French banana hammock, Brad, and I want him shaved clean like an Olympic swimmer. I want him shaved clean, banana hammock, doing stretching. I want maximum embarrassment for Brad.
Don't get me started on yoga. Yoga's just stretching with religion. I don't, with all the spiritualism, the two things that make me very uncomfortable at the same time.
What an old man you are today. You are such a... Anyway, your hosts have been Brad. Brad's angry. He's an angry old man.
And my friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com. And don't forget to go and check out picklebook.com.
Pickles Book. That's right, with an S in it. Picklesbook.com. A little stretch for your tongue there. Sorry about that. It had an S on it. And don't forget, in this last week to run, don't walk over to newevilbook.com. And I will say the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And our favorite stretcher of all, this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode.
And don't forget to give us a 5-star review over on Spotify, where we are burning up the podcast charts. And Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/Comic Lab. So I will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/ Brad just gets right on the treadmill. There's no stretching at all. Just right on the treadmill. Just can't be bothered. Even twisting at the torso, little arm swing. Like some calf stretches against the wall.
I don't swing my arms like a drunken sailor. I just walk. You're on the treadmill.
Oh my God. To you, is that what it is? It's like, I'm diminishing myself if I'm stretching. I'm not some kind of drunken sailor. I'm a grown man.
I'm going to have some sort of self-control up there.
I love the idea that your brain is like, I'm walking on a treadmill. My calves will figure it out. All right, what do we got for a sticker?
I always figure I had that covered when I'm doing my writing session. I just try to stretch my imagination.
Okay, follow my lead and we'll see if this becomes anything. Okay, let's try. Yeah, I got that. That wasn't very good. That wasn't very good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be judgy. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I immediately shot down your joke. That's so unlike me to be like, nope, that was a terrible joke.
Holy shit, that killed me.